I'm gonna need a couple minutes. I have no idea what they're playing over there, but it's annoying. All right. Talk about bright, jeez. Ooh, holy jeez. All right, where are we at here? Yeah, I'm doing this because it's fresh in my mind, and I wanted to talk about this some a little bit before the day winds over and into night, and people start going to sleep and all that. I tried calling to see if Manuel and I tried calling to see if my friend Manuel and the other guy who was my friend who was there, if they wanted to go hop on and talk about some of the stuff real quick, but they didn't want to do that, so that does suck just a tad. Great information tonight. Frankly, let me see by pulling up the Bible and all that. Bible study. All right, Romans 12. Nope. 1 Corinthians 9. I think there was something here real quick. So this was about tithing, and this was interesting. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about first here with tithing is I'm going to talk more about this in depth with others, because this is where I stand upon. Tithing is one of the points separating believers from non-believers. Why we tithe is more important than how much we tithe. And the other points that were brought up tonight were of interest in the sense that people will connect sin to not tithing. So some believers will connect sin to not tithing, while others will say that, and this is where I stand, tithing is represented through where you are at in your life and your heart is represented by how much you give and whether or not you are even willing to give in the first place. But that is not necessarily a sin to not tithe and give at all. To be like Christ is to give and to put God and his glory first, and I want to say his ministry, his church, seek forth the kingdom and his righteousness, and all will be added unto you. Where's that verse at real quick? Seek his kingdom first. Matthew 6:33, right? But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. That's NIV, right? Oh, yeah. Moving on. I need to go back to where I was at. 1 Corinthians 9:13. So, tithing, 10% or more. And I forget the other exact amount. Apparently, there was, and I noted, I spoke out and I said I noted that 10% seemed to be, is what tied to Israel back in the day. However, there were other tithes as well. And my other friend, Luke, he noted that the 10% was really never overridden or removed. It was always there in the background. He also noted a couple of things that Paul actually demanded there to be tithing at one point, which really interested me, because I was like, well, I've never heard of that, but it would make sense for those who are in a pastoral position to be able to, demand tithes for specific reasons. You're not demanding it for yourself, you're demanding it for your trip that you're going on or whatever. That would make sense. because other people have needs that you're trying to meet and to fulfill. All right, let me see here. So, 1 Corinthians 9 verse 13. Do you not know that those who officiate in the sacred services of the temple eat from the temple offerings of meat and bread, and those who regularly tend the altar have their share from the offerings brought to the altar? Question mark. Oh, that's amplified. Let me go to NIV. Don't you know that those who serve in the temple get their food from the temple, and that those who serve at the altar share in what is offered on the altar? Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. In short, tithing in the back in the day was tied to meeting the needs of those who were part of the tribe of Levi, or those who were priests who were serving the rest of the nation. So the idea of tithing goes back to giving and meeting needs rather than paying taxes and tribute. I think paying tribute to God was there in the beginning, but as far as Israel is concerned, it was a way of maintenance and giving glory to God. Again, I would like to actually save a majority of that particular topic for discussion with a friend of mine, so we could have a recorded conversation on this, because it's a really good topic. I'm just standing firm on the whole. It is a mark between believers and non-believers. Jacob's ladder. When I was first asked about that tonight, I was like, well, since he didn't specify in the Bible, what popped into mind was the original movie Jacob's Ladder. I heard it was very, I don't want to use polarizing. I want to use it like very painful, because there was a lot that was removed from the person's life and how it was very brutal. Not necessarily gory, but like there was a lot showing that the person's suffering. But by the end of the movie, you end up getting the understanding that there was a lot of unnecessary junk and things that got between us and God that was removed. It just looked like it was very painful. I haven't seen it myself, so I'm just going off of memory of something that I've seen of people talking about this stuff, and it was really interesting. It's on the to-do list. It's on the to-watch list that I'll get to at one point in time. Genesis. Can't remember where this was at. Genesis. Jacob's ladder. Jacob ladder. I can't remember what verse. It's in Genesis somewhere. Genesis 28. Okay, there we go. Okay. Genesis 28. Minor point is how... Okay, verse 1. So Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, you shall not marry one of the women of Canaan. Let me switch to NIV real quick. Keep it simple. Commanded, do not marry Canaanite women. Go at once to Paddan Aram, to the house of your mother's father Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. Laban, apparently, this was a side note that they brought up, is that Laban kept popping up around this time in history, and it was interesting that he was actually part of it. Number 3, may God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner, the land God gave to Abraham. It's been speculated around at this point in time, and this was probably maybe a year or 2 years after. It's definitely some time after when Jacob basically snuck in and took the blessing from that was supposed to go to Esau, his brother. So it's been noted that Isaac was not fully on board with what God had said about, in conjunction to Esau and Jacob about the older brother shall serve the younger one. But Jacob was learning more about this as well. So obviously, Esau basically traded his birthright for a bowl of soup. He traded the eternal for a meal. And I'm pretty sure God was like, "Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm done with him. Bye." And he valued or cared about Jacob, not because he went about this deceitfully, but because he valued what God himself, valued. It's also noted that Esau ended up realizing the Canaanite women, let me see where it was said here. It's verse 8. Esau then realized how displeasing Canaanite women were to his father Isaac, so he went to Ishmael and married Malahath, the sister Neobath, the daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. He's still trying to gain his father's blessing and approval. He's, yeah. It's just some smaller things to note here about this that leads up to the Jacob's Ladder part. So, overall, Genesis 28, chapter 28, verses 1, going all the way down to the whole chapter basically is on Jacob's ladder and Jacob going out to go marry a Canaanite woman. Sorry, to marry a woman, to take a wife for himself from the daughters of Laban, while avoiding the Canaanite women. So, Jacob's dream at Bethel starts at 10. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put on his head and lay down to sleep. Now, this is where I kind of interjected here, and I was like, this is interesting because I've seen a couple of ads that have popped up talking about these studies that were lost and about how people, or rather these monks, these Tibet monks, would sleep on the ground in a certain position, and they would be fully recharged for less amount of time that they were actually sleeping, but that they were directly connected to the earth, the ground. And it was interesting to note how some of these studies took advantage of that by trying to sell a product. One of the ones that I remember was like a bed sheet type of thing, silver lining, something there, and you would put it down between you and the earth, and it would simulate you sleeping on the ground and provide like something, a charge or whatever. And I was like, well, that was kind of interesting. You basically sleep better when you're on the ground. And Manuel was describing experience where he was sleeping on the ground for a period of time, and he was actually doing better. So it's of interest to note that, where there's almost no real context. It's just, oh, hey, there's ads and stuff popped up, blah, blah, blah. It relates to that particular point because of Jacob sleeping with a rock under his head. No, I mean, not very comfortable, but being able to be fully restored and to regain your strength and to be fully recharged compared to sleeping in a bed where you can be restless and you can be struggling and you're just not falling asleep. So, yeah. The next part was interesting because that's actually where my friend Manuel started off the conversation with. How? It's verse 12. And he said that there was a specific word only used one time in the Bible to talk about stairway, to describe stairway. Let me swap over to the Amplified version, 12. So, for Amplified, it says, he dreamed that there was a ladder, parentheses, stairwell. And so basically, the question that he had asked, and he started the whole thing off, was, when it comes down to the Jacob's ladder, what do you think it is? A ladder, a stairway, or is it something else? And I'm paraphrasing. So in short, I kind of like, I basically was like, well, put it this way. When Manuel made the joke about, like, he was wondering if this kind of correlates with the whole highway to hell thing, stairway to heaven, highway to hell. And I was like, well, there's, the highway, bigger signs, easier to access and to go down, and more public. The stairway / ladder, very narrow. One way, one person only, I shouldn't say one way, but it's more of like a one person going one way or the other. So, great place to start. He then proceeded to go into talking about dreams and how it was a great way to transition into the whole, like, Jacob dreaming and sleeping and the ladder popping out. And frankly, I'm of the mind that when you dream, that whole entire, let me rephrase. When you dream, it is possible that you're going to a reality that is real. Now, where it exists, is probably somewhere between heaven and earth. Keeping it vague because, frankly, it's probably formless and there's probably no dimensions to it. But so many people have woken up remembering their dreams. And I know I'm one of them because I've had so many dreams. I wrote this stuff down. It's mind-boggling. Still having dreams of back when I was in the military too, which surprises me. Having dreams, recently had a dream of a huge place, a complex with grain and storage of some kind, multi-layered, and there was a zombie outbreak. And the military, the soldiers there, kept barricading the inner parts off to keep them, keep the zombies away. And that me and the other people there, we had to find our own way to survive and running away from the zombies and stuff. Very interesting. The other dream I had, I can't quite remember, but it was in the general area. It was just slightly different. It wasn't a zombie apocalypse. It was like hiding from the troops or whatever. Interesting stuff. So anyway, he was talking a little bit about that. It was just interesting transition when talking about how dreams, not just that God can communicate through dreams, but that our dreams itself is linked to what is real. And frankly, I think there's some truth to that. I don't know if I would stretch it any further than, say, conceptual embodiment. That's something that's brought into Warframe that I want to talk about later. Something becoming real. Basically, in the simplest form, something becoming real. Dreams becoming real. Now, that would be horrifying if dreams were becoming reality, because I know some of the horrifying things that we've had in our dreams. One of them for me was wasps, huge stingers and stuff like that. Like, I had a dream, like, I think it was my mom or whatever, she got stung all over her arms, and these wasp bruises were like the size of like baseballs going all throughout the arm, in that it was just leaking all over the place. Kind of gross, and I don't remember anything else, but it was just like, what happened? Oh, she got stung a whole bunch of times. Like, yeah. It's like something that came straight out from one of the Mist movies. Crazy insects that are massive, that burrow holes in your skin and leave larvae in there. Yeah. I mean, if you want to have like dreams becoming reality, Mist is like a perfect movie or a series, since it was made from a movie into a series later down the road, that goes into that pretty well. Dreams, crazy stuff. Sleeping on the ground is based. Why you would sleep on the ground? Well, if you're in the military and you're out doing these training exercises, that's one of them. Two, camping and hiking. Uh, who doesn't like going out and being away from everyone else and just being alone in nature, cooking some hot dogs, getting a nice fire going? Like, there's some wonderful images there. Since I play games, I would have to say the forest. That goes down a whole different route of like you and your son crash land in the middle of this island where there's some research and stuff going on. Your son gets taken from you, but there's a survival aspect where you have to try to survive until you find her son and all that. So you're camping out, you're building rafts, you're building makeshift fortifications, and you're learning how to hunt and get game and basically to survive. Anyway, that's what you're saying there. Why did Esau not want his birthright? Esau didn't value his birthright. It's not that he didn't want it, he didn't value it because it wasn't something that he could hold or use like weapons and tools. It meant nothing to something to someone as simple-minded as him, where if he couldn't hold it, it didn't have value. And that's my interpretation of that. I could be off, I could be wrong, but I have to say that. I'm not living in my car. I'm just staying in here rather than being inside for a couple of reasons. My house is still a mess. Just because I'm able to live in it doesn't mean it's completely cleaned up. So yeah, I got stuff everywhere. Let me see here. Oh, right. Talking about dreams. Okay, so the whole verse for Genesis 28, verse 12, with the whole Jacob's ladder. He dreamed that there was a ladder, stairway, placed on the earth, and that the top of it reached out of sight toward heaven, and he saw the angels of God ascending and descending on it, going to and from heaven. Parentheses, John 1:51. And behold, oh, okay, let's go on 13. Verse 13. And behold, the Lord stood above and around him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father's father, and the God of Isaac. I will give to you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants shall be as countless as the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and the east and the north and the south, and all the families, aka nations, of the earth shall be blessed through you and your descendants. Other verses from Genesis are pointed down there. Genesis 12:2, Genesis 13:16, 26:4, Acts 3. Yeah, there's quite a bit there. Behold, I am with you and will keep careful watch over you and guard you wherever you may go, and I will bring you back to this promised land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Verse 16. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, without any doubt, the Lord is in this place, and I did not realize it. So he was afraid. How fearful and awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gateway to heaven. There's also something about him calling it, verse 19. He named that place Bethel, house of God. The previous name of that city was Luz, almond tree, Luz. And that's when Jacob made a promise, a vow, saying, in the verse 20, if God will be with me and will keep me on this journey that I take and will give me food to eat and clothing to wear, verse 29, and if he grants that I return to my father's house in safety, then the Lord will be my God. Verse 22, this stone which I have set up as a pillar, aka monument, memorial, parentheses, will be God's house, a sacred place to me, parentheses. And of everything that you give me, I will give the 10th to you as an offering to signify my gratitude and dependence on you. It's noted that the oil that he poured on top of the rock to consecrate it, it could be considered as part of like the 10th. The 10th part of part of the tithing that he gave to God was the pouring out of the oil onto the rock itself, not just consecrating it. So there was a whole discussion that rose up about, you know, tithing being a part of consecration and how that fits into the whole picture. It was really interesting. Again, I want to talk more about tithing with my friends here because they know more about this stuff than I do, and it's frankly amazing. Bringing history into all of this really sheds a lot of light into not just the context, but to stuff that we're possibly missing in our own lives, stuff that the churches don't necessarily talk about. Like, they have education. A lot of the pastors and preachers have education, but when they're missing out on some of the original languages, and they're missing out on like the cultures and the time of the history and all that for that particular part of the Bible that they're talking about, there's a lot that's being lost in transition here. And that's partly why I like doing this stuff, is because it's like recalling what is there that was lost. I'm just doing a really bad job of it. Or, if you want to put a positive spin on it, I'm putting a very natural spin on this without it coming across as forcing scripture down your throat or being completely immersed in the Bible and still having a sense of history. Because I try to correlate what is biblical with what is not biblical, and I try to definitely have history in there somewhere, because history is a reliable source to lean on. Granted, I try to lean away from certain things that can be decided or manipulated by others, because history is decided by the victor is very, very true. We can see that in today's, at least I know we can for a little bit. You can see that in some of the places where the Muslims and Islam has really taken hold of. They have, I want to say Iran is a great example. They're doing some uprisings over there, and that's of a great interest to a lot of people, is because they were not originally a Muslim nation, a Muslim country. Islam was not there up until like the 1980s, I think. 1980s, 1990s, and that's when they transformed from whoever they used to be. I know, but I can't recall it. They had a whole culture and all of that. Then Islam came over and completely either destroyed it or negated it somehow. There's other countries that have been hit far worse, with Muslims and Islam completely trying to destroy their heritage and their history. Iran is just of something I mentioned because there's literally in the news about them. I'm going to look that up real quick. Just type in Iran news. See what pops up here. I'm going on Wi-Fi hotspot data, so my internet, it still needs to be set up. And I'm still waiting for equipment to be sent out to me so that I can hook this up. I need to call and see what's going on here, because I'm paying for internet, and where's the internet? They said that the equipment I was using was outdated and that it was going to be shipped out, and they said it should have been arrived yesterday. So where's the equipment? Still loading. Anyway, I don't know how long this is going to take. Long story short, Iran's all over the news lately. Take a look, because they are revolting, and I don't entirely get the full picture, so I can't really say much about that. What are you all saying here? No, I do not live in the car. Okay. 28. Anything else? What was the other part that I said this was about? Tithing, Jacob's ladder, redemption, right. So, the last part that I would like to talk more about here is pretty simple. Except I will dedicate an entire video to it, and it'll be like a short thing. So I will take part of this and just do a little short of it. In short, can God redeem what is not human? Can God redeem not just people, but things, places, objects, songs, music? And it kind of hit me is because there's a really awesome song that I found. And since it took me years to find it. I found it once again, I want to say roughly around 2017. Like, I originally stumbled across this song around 2013 when I was heavily into porn. And so the song itself was linked to lesbian stuff. Girlfriend forever. And it always stuck with me, not just because the song was great, but because there was something else behind there. I was just like, I can't put my finger on it. I lost track of it back. So I moved on, life moved on. I left the military. And then like 2015, 2016, 2017, it popped up again. And I was like, I remember that. And so it popped up again recently. And it took me like an whole entire 48 hours to like find everything, because there's actually history behind the song, and there's some other stuff as well. So like, I couldn't find it for the life of me, funny enough. In short, the song itself, well, it basically, there's nothing wrong with the song. There's nothing evil. There's nothing immoral. And it doesn't directly praise God or anything like that. But finally, after tonight, I was able to realize redemption and bringing things back to God. No matter what happens, we will associate things, events, whatever. We're going to make associations with what has happened, with the people in our life. We're going to do something there. And some of the stuff is not going to be healthy. It's not going to be right. And these are going to be, they're going to be associated incorrectly. So when it comes down to songs and movies and stuff like that, obviously you got the whole Marvel DC stuff with the whole like, let's just do a reboot and redo this because the previous one was done incorrectly or whatever. But redemption of stories and music, that's a little bit trickier. I think it's better to put it that way, because you're linking something directly from what it used to be, what it was, to God, directly to God. So in that regards, literally tonight, I finally found a way to actually talk about this for once. I'm going to play it here. It's 3 minutes and 51 seconds long, but I'm not really going to play the whole thing. I will link it down below. I'll link it down below, and then I'll do a short, and I'll link it there as well. And I'll just talk about redemption a little bit. Everything is in the process of being redeemed. How loud is this thing? All right. Electrofusion, high-speed output, original mix. "13 years ago, 106,000 views. 237 comments. Yeah. It's a banger of a song that just gets so much better. But the idea that you can redeem what is not human is of interest because a lot of people say what is wrong, what is evil, throw it away, discard it. The problem is we are surrounded by things that is wrong or against God. Things that will lead us down into, away from God. Where we have to live in this world, this environment. We have to do the best that we can. And frankly, for the people who self-delete and check out, that's a prime example of people struggling to the point that they're giving up, and that it's proving in a way that this is critical. We living in this world is critical. I'm sorry, I need to phrase that better. Give me a second. We're living in an evil world, and this is absolutely critical because of people self-deleting and taking themselves out. And we have to learn to move on, to forgive, to heal, to let go, and we have to learn to turn to God. Redemption falls into this in some very unique ways. Being brought back into God's people and being blessed, having a future. I like to say having having hope for a better tomorrow. So, because some people they struggle and they're like, what is the whole point of this? Why are we doing this? You're investing in a better tomorrow. You're investing in your future. We don't always have kids because there's a lot of advertisements and stuff talking about like they'll bring your kids in the picture and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm single. I don't have kids. Why would I care about that? Well, you're going to care about your future. You want to care about being able to live and enjoy your life, who you are, and not be held back, not be stuck. You want to be free. Living in this world really is painful at times because the more you see, the more you realize there's a lot of garbage in here that we have to deal with, we have to live with. In that sense, the internet, it does a grievous harm because it exposes people up to literally filth and garbage all over. So like you really have to set your boundaries and put limitations up so that you're not going to be swarmed and swamped by all of this stuff. I mean, at the very least, it's too much. Good or bad, it's too much. Redemption, people are going to tie to scripture, they're going to tie to specific parts in the Bible, and more importantly to Jesus. That's good, that's needed. But I'd rather do so in a different way that keeps it relevant to our lives without being 100% in the Bible. I think I do a really good job at pulling from examples outside the Bible and correlating them with what is in the Bible. It's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's a little bit different, it's challenging, and you learn a thing or two. All right, that's about it. I gotta do that whole redemption thing with that song Electrofusion because not only is it a banger from like 13, 14 years ago, but it's very powerful in the fact that God can still use whatever he wants and we can't really do anything about it. I mean, we can reject, we can push away, we can accept, but it is there. And it's going to be there at least for the short time being. That being said, I am so thankful to finally click on the other side of that song that took me over a decade to realize. redemption. Porn songs can be redeemed into songs that glorify God. And I say that very simply, very basely, because that song was literally in a lesbian porn thing involving two girls being in a relationship. And so it was in the background of whatever it was, a trailer. I think it was a trailer. The other trailers, when I looked into it, it basically goes a different direction and they don't have that song in there. I'm not going to ruin I'm not going to ruin that. I'm not going to play that there because it does nothing good. It doesn't help you out. It just kind of drives home that point in a very unpleasant way. As a way to tie all this stuff together, I think grace, prayers, some protection, because you need to have a clear mind. You need to an extent, your heart needs to be clear and open when you're addressing this stuff, so you're not going to get latched or stuck on some of the stuff that you're talking about, that the words can come freely to you. That's not to say that being emotional is a bad thing when you're talking about this stuff. No. Just having some help when you're talking about this stuff really goes a long ways. I mean, having friends helping you out goes a long ways too, sure. All right, that's about it. Redemption is quite potent. Songs are equally potent because they're one of the very few things that can be forced into your life, whether you say yes or no. Man, that original source was awesome. I wish I could find it. It was just like really powerful. It was talking about songs like being one of the two things that just doesn't have to be given permission to be put in your life. Like music can be forced into your life whether you like it or not. It was just a really cool saying that I wish I could find. All right, until next time.